2025 brought many new Pokemon and features to Pokemon Go, but what can we expect in 2026? Well, in this video we will be speculating on everything that we are most likely going to be seeing, and at the end we will be going through some leaks for features that we could be seeing very soon in the game. So starting off with an event that we do know will be taking place in early 2026, Kalos Tour. But what we know about it at the moment isn't exactly the whole picture. You see, we do know we will be getting Shiny Diancie in Masterwork Research, and we will see Pokemon like Yveltal and Xerneas returning to raids. But as with pretty much every Go Tour event so far, there will be a Pokemon or a couple of Pokemon that are the headline act for this event, like Primal Groudon and Kyogre for Hoenn Tour, Origin Palkia and Dialga for Sinnoh Tour, and the Kyurem fusions for Unova Tour. And normally these headline acts are announced closer to the time of the event. But what exactly will be the headline act for Kalos Tour? Well, there are a few options. Firstly, with Mega Evolution being introduced in the Kalos Pokemon games X and Y, Mega Mewtwo X and Y could well debut here. These are the only Mega Pokemon from the original cohort of Mega Evolutions that we don't have in Pokemon Go yet, and it would fit the bill of a duo of very strong Pokemon headlining the event like we've seen before. But there is a little bit of an issue with this theory. 2026 is a big year for Pokemon Go. In fact, it is the 10th anniversary of Pokemon Go, and Mewtwo has always been a very hype-driven part of the game, with it appearing in early Pokemon Go trailers, etc. And it is a big fan favorite Pokemon, so there is a good chance that they could end up saving these two Pokemon for GoFest 2026, which is the biggest event for Pokemon Go of the year. Now with Pokemon Legends ZA, many new Mega Pokemon now exist, but none have come to Pokemon Go as of yet. So there is a possibility that some of them could debut at the Kalos Tour. Perhaps the Kalos starters, Mega Greninja, Mega Dalfox, and Mega Chestnut. However, it is unlikely that those would be enough to be considered a headline act, with them most likely working in the same way as the rest of the Mega Pokemon we currently have. But even if not the headline act, they may still be part of the Kalos Tour in some way, perhaps even the main act for the Mega Night aspect of the event. There is, however, a new Mega Pokemon that has a chance that it could debut for Kalos Tour, but it could be too soon for it. That Pokemon is Mega Zygarde. This is set to be one of, if not the most powerful Pokemon in Pokemon Go, and it would make a very hype headline addition for Kalos Tour. It could potentially work like Eternatus did for GoFest Finale in 2025, where upon completion of the raid, you don't actually get an encounter with Zygarde itself. You might get some Zygarde cells and Mega Energy that you can use on the one Zygarde each trainer gets from the A to Zygarde special research. This has the potential to be the case because it wouldn't be the first time that a Go Tour leans on the mechanics of the previous GoFest. In 2024, we saw the Necrozma fusions debut at GoFest, and then the following Go Tour Unova in 2025 repeated that same fusion mechanic with Black and White Kyurem. So it is possible that Mega Zygarde could follow Eternatus because of how strong both Eternatus and Mega Zygarde are. Or maybe we do get a Zygarde each time we raid it, but we get the 10% form as well as cells and Mega Energy, so we can hunt for better IV Zygarde and potentially the shiny, which I also think has a great chance of being released for Kalos Tour. This would give the cells a little bit more meaning if you've already changed your Zygarde's form to the 100% and you've capped out on Zygarde cells. If you've done these things, there's no use for Zygarde cells currently, and we know already that you will be able to get cells from up to 25 routes per day during the Kalos Tour. And honestly, getting Zygarde cells from raids would be a lot more fun than doing routes, because at the moment routes just aren't that exciting. Now, as much as it would be really hype getting Mega Zygarde during Kalos Tour, there is a good chance it is too early for this Pokemon to debut, with how recently it debuted in Pokemon Legends ZA and with how strong it can be compared to the current Pokemon we have. Maybe it does make sense to leave it a while like they did for Mega Mewtwo, and it's possible that Mega Zygarde will be the headline act for a GoFest or a GoFest Finale in the future instead. So for that reason, I believe we could see the non-Mega Zygarde debut in raids during the Kalos Tour instead. And there is something about this that could actually make it quite interesting. So as I've mentioned before, we've only ever been able to get one Zygarde in Pokemon Go, so opening that up to raids where we can encounter Zygarde even if it's just a 10% form would actually be pretty nice to see, because we can then get more chances at better IVs and potentially a chance at the shiny. Adding Zygarde to raids alone, however, probably won't have much of an impact, and perhaps players wouldn't be that excited for it. But to make it more interesting, they could actually add some of Zygarde's signature moves. Now Zygarde actually has 5 signature moves: 1000 Arrows, 1000 Waves, and Land's Wrath, which are all ground type moves, and Core Enforcer, which is a dragon type move. And if Zygarde does have Core Enforcer when it Mega evolves, that move turns into another signature move, Nihilite. And I could actually see Core Enforcer being a requirement for Zygarde's Mega Evolution in Pokemon Go, much like how Mega Rayquaza requires Dragon Ascent. So it is quite possible that 1 or 2 of these 4 signature moves, not including Nihilite, could be up for grabs during Kalos Tour. There is a good chance that they could have Adventure Effect as well, and maybe each Zygarde that we raid has a chance of coming with these moves, and maybe which badge we pick for the Kalos Tour will determine which of these moves we can get more often, like how it worked with Origin Palkia and Dialga back in the day. Adventure Effect effects have only been added at big events like Go Tour and Go Fest, so there is a really good chance that that could happen. And with that said, that brings us to Go Fest 2026. What can we expect from this event? Well, as it goes each year, there will most likely be a new mythical debut. This could potentially be Fiona, Manaphy, or we could see Magearna, which would be the next mythical Pokemon dex-wise after Volcanion, which debuted in 2025. Zeraora also has potential. The only other mythical Pokemon than these would be Pecharunt, which I do think will probably be further down the line. Dreepy will most likely have its shiny release at Go Fest 2026, and there will no doubt be new costume Pokemon and special backgrounds. But what about the big headline act? Well, as I mentioned before, with it being the 10th anniversary of Pokemon Go in 2026, Mega Mewtwo X and Y could well debut here, if they haven't already debuted in the Kalos Tour earlier in the year. And if that does happen, instead we could potentially see Arceus debut, or maybe Arceus will be kept for the 10th anniversary of Go Fest, which will be happening the next year in 2027. There is also the possibility that we get access to G-Max Urshifu at Go Fest as well, or in the Go Fest finale event. Or I guess more fitting for a G-Max Pokemon would be the Wild Area event, but as Urshifu is a legendary Pokemon as well, I could see it being kept for a bigger event like Go Fest because it is bigger than the Go Wild Area. But speaking of the Go Wild Area, what Pokemon could we see for the 2026 iteration of the event? Well, these events tend to feature the G-Max form of a Pokemon that hasn't released before, and it tends to be a dual type Pokemon, and the gameplay of the event in previous years has actually hinged a little bit on this, with each wild spawn hour being based on one of the two types, and they rotate back and forth. Of course, gameplay like this can change, but for now let's think about dual type unreleased G-Max Pokemon. So there are only a few that fit this exact criteria. First we have the Bug Psychic type G-Max Orbeetle, we then have the Water and Rock type Dreadnought, and we have of course the Fighting Dark type G-Max Urshifu Single Strike, and the Fighting Water type G-Max Urshifu Rapid Strike. But like I said, it's more likely that G-Max Urshifu will be kept for something bigger. They could actually be kept for the Gala Tour in 2028, but that will most likely feature the Calyrex forms, I would imagine. So G-Max Orbeetle and G-Max Dreadnought are perhaps the most fitting choices for the Go Wild area. We do also have the Rock and Fire type G-Max Colossal, which is currently unreleased at the time of this recording, but it does feature in the Precious Path seasonal trailer, so it is safe to say that that line of Pokemon will probably debut this season. So as far as dual type Pokemon we have had already released in Pokemon Go, but they haven't had their G-Max form released, we have the Flying Steel G-Max Corviknight, the Rock Fire type Colossal, assuming it does debut during Precious Paths. We have the Grass Dragon type Flapple and Appleton, the Fire and Bug type Centiskorch, the Psychic and Fairy type Hatterene, and the Steel Dragon Duraludon. And if they did decide to pivot away from the dual type Pokemon, we also have the Ground type G-Max Sandaconda, the Fairy type G-Max Alcremie, the Steel type Copperajah, and of course the Steel type mythical Pokemon G-Max Melmetal. Again, for this one, much like Urshifu, perhaps it will be released in a bigger event in the wild area, being that it is a mythical Pokemon, and one that has quite a unique acquisition method through the Meltan mystery boxes as well, so I'm not really too sure how that one will be implemented. We do also tend to have some pretty strong raid bosses as well as the G-Max Pokemon for wild area. In 2024, Primal Groudon and Kyogre and Origin Palkia and Origin Dialga were available all together with G-Max Toxtricity. And in 2025, alongside G-Max Grimmsnarl, we had Shadow Cresselia and Shadow Darkrai available. So in 2026, we could perhaps see the Necrozma or Kyurem fusions, maybe even some other Shadow Raid bosses that haven't been released in Shadow Raids before, or we could even see a new Mega Evolution or two, because at the time of Go Wild Area 2026, it will be around a year since Pokemon Legends ZA came out. So perhaps if not before, we could see one or two Megas here. And of course, we will see the return of arguably the best part of the event being Mighty Pokemon, and perhaps we will see more pseudo-legendary Pokemon like we have seen in previous years. For the community days, apart from a few, they are actually pretty difficult to predict. But it is very likely that we will get Grookey in January, potentially Scorbunny in March, Frigibax in June, following the trend of the pseudo-legendary Pokemon community days, and we will most likely see Sobble community day in July or August. As for the rest, it's hard to say because there are so many options. We will also see more G-Max Pokemon come to the game, most likely in Max Battle Days, potentially some of the Pokemon I mentioned before such as G-Max Hatterene, G-Max Alcremie, etc., and perhaps Pokemon like G-Max Eevee and Pikachu, because we have had G-Max Meowth teased for the Precious Path season, so it only makes sense that they would follow throughout the year as well. And as we have recently had a Max Lugia weekend, it's very likely that we will get a Max Ho weekend in early 2026, and there is a good chance that Max Registeel, Regirock and Regice will follow, and potentially Max Groudon and Max Kyogre after after that. In 2025, we did also have Shadow Tornadus released from Giovanni, so it would make sense that Shadow Thundurus and Landorus will follow in 2026. We could then also see Shadow Cobalion, Terrakion, Virizion, Reshiram, and Zekrom, etc. In Shadow Raids, we are likely to see Shadow Dialga and Palkia. Maybe these are kept for Wild Area 2026 though. And with all of the original cohort of Mega Pokemon being released in the game now, apart from Mega Mewtwo X and Y, it is likely that we will see some of the new Pokemon Legends ZA Megas. Maybe some of the earlier revealed ones like Mega Dragonite, Malamar, Hawlucha, etc. And with Alola Tour most likely set for early 2027, I think this might actually be the Halloween that we do get Mimikyu, so we can have a complete Pokedex for the Alola Tour. And with the amount of hype and time we've waited for Mimikyu, the 10th anniversary of Pokemon Go seems like a great opportunity to get it. And even though the anniversary poster art often shows things that don't get released for a long time, for the 9th anniversary poster in 2025, we did see some Paradox Pokemon featured. And I think 2026 will be the year where we start to see some of these getting released. How this will be done, I'm not too sure, but perhaps they will be headlines for standard events, or maybe they will release in raid days. And the Paradox Legendary Beast variants, Walking Wake, Raging Bolt, and Gouging Fire, there is a good chance they will be added to the daily incense pool, or they'll rotate out with the Galarian birds, because it will help to freshen up the daily incense a little bit. And it makes sense that the Paldean iteration of the Gen 2 legendaries will be added to the game in the same way as the Galarian iteration of the Gen 1 legendaries have been. And if this does happen, they will most likely have a very similar 0.3% catch rate and 90% flea rate. I could also see this happening with the Paradox forms of Cobalion, Terrakion, and Virizion as well. However, this is just speculation. It's possible they will be implemented in raids or even in a different mechanic as a whole. Speaking of Paldean Pokemon, maybe we even get to see the box legendaries of Scarlet and Violet, Koraidon, and Miraidon debuting in 5-star raids at some point throughout 2026. And toward the end of 2026, it will actually be 2 years since the Dynamax feature was added to Pokemon Go. So I think this is likely a good time to be adding a new gimmicky feature to the game. And with Alola Tour coming up in 2027, I'm wondering if they will add Z moves or even trials and totem Pokemon to the game. Now for Z moves in the main series games, you need either a corresponding type crystal to unlock the Z move for that type, or in some cases you need a specific Z crystal for a specific Pokemon for their unique moves. It's possible the Z mechanic could be its own thing again, where you do have to do Z raids to get Pokemon that are eligible to use a Z move, and maybe you need something like Z energy for it to use its Z move or something along those lines. I do think this is a possibility, or maybe if we are lucky, we just need to raid a certain amount of Z raids to get some kind of currency that we can use to give our current Pokemon a Z move. And maybe these moves can be used in regular content, or maybe they'll just be usable in Z raids or something like that, for example. And I'm wondering if instead, or as well as, they could add some kind of feature similar to trials that we saw in Pokemon Sun and Moon, where you would face off against totem Pokemon that were more powerful versions of a certain Pokemon. These trials could also potentially be a way for us to get totem Pokemon, or like in the main series games, beating a totem Pokemon will get you a certain Z crystal, or maybe it's how you get Z energy or something like that to unlock the Z moves to use them. In the main series games, however, it is worth noting that totem Pokemon are not catchable. And while this is all just an idea and speculation, there are some leaks from data miners that do suggest some features that are coming to the game pretty soon. And here's a breakdown of what's been hinted at in the code. I do want to note though, these are data mines, they've not been confirmed, so they could be subject to change. So for a while now, there has been information in the code that seems to point to remote trading coming to the game. It does seem like we will have to reach a certain friendship level above best friends called Forever Friends to be able to do a remote trade. But even if this is the case, it'll be really useful if you do become lucky friends with someone you can't meet up with in real life, and it gives friendship a little bit more of an incentive to level up. Recent data mines have also suggested that we will soon be able to see how long somebody's been offline on our friends list, which will make sorting out your friends list a lot easier, and it stops people that aren't playing the game anymore filling up your friends list. There are also hints in the in-game code to something new coming to the Mega system. It is a little bit unclear, but there are new tutorials that have been added to the code tagged Mega and 2026. So this has the potential to be a new rework to the Mega system, or perhaps it's a new specific system or an addition to a system for an important Mega Pokemon. Potentially Mega Mewtwo X, Mega Mewtwo Y, and Mega Zygarde that could potentially be added in a different way or have some kind of unique mechanics to them. It is unclear though at the moment. Do let me know in the comments what you think will be coming to Pokemon Go in 2026, and if you did enjoy this video, then I recommend checking out this video on the screen next, and I'll catch you in the next one.